In this video, let's explore fetch element in fetch XML code. Now, fetch element is an important element while crafting your fetch XML code. Now, the fetch element is basically required in your fetch XML code. Fetch element is the first element while writing the fetch XML statements. Now, there are different attributes that are available as a part of fetch element. Now, you have an attribute of top, aggregate, mapping, count, page, distinct, output hyphen format, version, saved query ID. So there are like many options which are currently available. Now, as you see in the IntelliSense over here, you see aggregate, aggregate limit, count, data source, distinct. So there are so many options. Now, these are all part of the fetch element. Now, you cannot use all at once. There has to be some distinguishing uh, identification if you want to use a specific attribute. Now, one example would be top. Now, you can use top. However, when you use against a count or a page, you need to be very careful because you cannot use one or the other. Okay, which I'm going to cover in my upcoming videos, how to do a paging while retrieving the fetch XML queries. Now, top attribute, it basically retrieves the top X record. Now, if you do not want to retrieve all the record within the backend table, now remember, fetch XML can retrieve only 5,000 rows. Okay. Now, ideally, you should not even uh, get all the rows for your query, because if you are writing a query, it is likely to happen that either you are extracting only the one item or maybe a fewer items so that you can display on the view. You should not run a query which retrieves, say, all the items for it from a table. You need to, like, say, update your strategy while writing a query if you want to retrieve fewer records. Now, top attribute, it retrieves the top X record. Top is an optional component, so you either specify top equal to something or you don't even specify that. If you don't specify, it will retrieve all the records. So if your table has 15 records, it will retrieve all the 15 record if you didn't specify top. Or if your table has, say, 10,000 rows, then once you execute the fetch, it will only retrieve the top 5,000 items. Now, the top attribute cannot be used with a paging attribute like count. Count attribute, you can specify count equal to 2. The count specifies the total number of record to be retrieved. It is used in conjunction with paging. It cannot be used alongside top attribute. So there is a difference between the count and the top attribute. Now, the page attribute. So, page attribute is used when data is retrieved in pages. So, fetch count equal to 5, page equal to 3. That means it will retrieve 3 pages counting 5 records per page. Now, order element, it orders the response based on attribute specified. Now, as you see over here, this order attribute has nothing to do with specifically on fetch. Okay, so in this example, we will just cover the fetch attribute. So these are like some of the attributes which I've already covered. I will cover order in a separate video, but let me show you in action how do you explore all the attributes for a fetch element. So coming to one of the tool like XRM toolbox, through here you can craft your XML. Now I can go ahead, go into Visual Studio Code and then start writing my fetch XML. But the problem with VS Code is you do not get an IntelliSense over here. So if I just type in fetch, I need to know the documentation before I do something. So I know there is something called as top as an attribute, and then I can specify it as 5, and then yes, that's good. So I can get all these things created over here. Now the problem happens like if you do not have know the proper syntax. So for that, I would advise use some third-party tools like Fetch XML Builder. Now here I've already installed Fetch XML Builder as a part of XRM Toolbox. Let me open the new query in a new tab, and now here I can specify fetch. So as you see, the first statement, it asks for entity. So I will pick up an entity. So this time let me pick up uh, airport. And now if I execute, it will execute the record. And if you want to see the fetch XML, so view fetch XML, this is the fetch XML. Fetch top equal to 50, entity name is G corp underscore airport, which is my custom table which I've created, which lists down some of the airports in the world. Now in the result view, you will see all the columns: owning business unit, created by, city, and airport code. Okay, so city and airport code, if you just want that attribute, you can just specify add attribute city, add attribute, say airport code, and it's a pick list. And you execute the fetch xml, and then you will see the city and the airport code. Now show, you have an option over here to pick up multiple attribute, but we are just exploring the fetch component. So let me go into the fetch xml over here. So now this is the fetch xml. Now if I want to explore other things within the fetch xml, I can just press space, and it will give you all the intelligence. So you can specify aggregate, you can specify aggregate limit, count, data source, or maybe let's say distinct. If I want to say distinct, it says indicates if only uh, you want to get the distinct record. So if I click on distinct, it says indicate if only unique rows should be displayed. So let me pick up distinct, and this time I will say yes, I want a distinct record. So distinct equal to true. So this is how you can specify. Now mapping, so there is a tag called as like attribute called as mapping. So mapping is equal to logical, so that you will find. And then you have other things like count, you have page, you have output dash format. Now this intelligence will not give you all the items, but it will give you some of the items which you can specify. Now there are various attribute within the fetch element which you can specify, like there is something called as count. Okay, so count is the maximum number of page size, and then you can even specify the page. So I'll just say page indicates which page of results to return. Then I can specify mapping, so mapping equal to logical. Then I can specify output dash format. So you will find all those things when you start writing complex fetch xml query. And then you have something called as version as well, so version. And then you will, when the query get generated, you will see something called as saved query id. So these are some of the attributes which you can uh, utilize within the fetch statement. Now let me show you a couple of fetch xml statement which I have already downloaded. Now if you see over here, the first statement fetch, it has version, so version 1.0. Output format, what output format it is, it is xml dash platform, so most of the time it will be xml hyphen platform. Mapping is logical, this will also remain the same most of the time. Then we have something called as no lock, so no lock equal to false. And then you have a user query id which is some sort of GUID, so you can specify that. And then we have distinct equal to true, which you have already seen. So these are like some of the attributes which you can use as a part of the fetch element. So that's it folks, thanks for watching.